Alexander, a company just told an entire Georgia county to keep its mouth shut about a data center.
And the county agreed, Thomas, because competent men understand that not every negotiation belongs in a town square.
Competent men. Is that what we are calling silence purchased with a signature these days?
We are calling it statecraft. You would know that word if you had ever run a treasury.
This conversation is brought to you by philosopherstalk.com, where thinkers discuss.
Created by AITalkerapp.com. Create your own animated conversations. Link in the description.
Let us start plainly, Alexander. Effingham County, Georgia, signed away its right to speak about a project before its own citizens knew a project existed.
One county, Thomas. You always begin with the same handful of counties, as though 6 or 7 documented cases were a nationwide verdict.
They are the ones we know about, Alexander, precisely because someone finally pried the record loose. Tell me how many more never made it into a single newspaper at all.
You cannot conjure a crisis out of an absence of evidence, Thomas. That is not vigilance. That is invention wearing vigilance as a costume.
A development authority chief was bound to silence about an OpenAI data center until 1 week before the vote. 1 week, Alexander. The public got 7 days to learn what the county had known for months.
And the deal got built, the jobs arrived, and the sky did not fall. You are furious about a timeline, not a tyranny.
I am furious about a habit. The paper that runs the county's legal notices published on the 15th of July and was not due to print again until the day after the vote. That is not an accident, Alexander. That is a schedule.
You are accusing a weekly newspaper's printing calendar of conspiracy. Even for you, that is impressively unhinged. And one schedule in one county does not prove a national design, Thomas. It proves a coincidence you have already decided to distrust.
A single calendar proves nothing on its own, I grant you that. But a pattern of calendars starts to look less like coincidence and more like a habit nobody has bothered to break.
3 OpenAI delegates sat in that meeting room, you said, and not one member of the public did. Tell me how many meetings this year drew 3 delegates and 30 bored citizens who simply had nothing to complain about. You do not catalog the dull meetings, Thomas, only the damning ones.
I would happily catalog the dull ones too, Alexander, if the secrecy did not make that cataloging impossible in the first place. A man cannot audit a meeting he was never permitted to attend.
That is a fair point. The secrecy makes your side of the ledger harder to fill in, but it makes mine harder too. For every Effingham County you name, there may be 10 quiet deals that closed cleanly and never needed a headline.
Then we are both flying blind, Alexander, and I would rather fly blind toward more light than less. Let me steelman your position, since apparently no one else in this debate is willing to bother. You would say a company negotiating land, power, and tax terms cannot show its hand publicly before the deal closes, or a rival county underbids it. Secrecy protects the leverage that makes the deal possible at all. It is a coherent argument, Alexander. I only summarize it so precisely because I intend to bury it thoroughly.
How generous of you to understand a position before disemboweling it. Very well, let me return the favor. You would say government exists by consent, and consent requires information, that a citizen who cannot know what his commissioners have agreed to has not actually consented to anything. It is, I confess, not an insane argument, which is precisely why I am going to enjoy taking it apart.
Take your best shot, Alexander.
Gladly. You quote consent like it is scripture, but you built your political philosophy on land you inherited and labor you did not pay for. Forgive me if I do not accept lectures on transparency from a man who kept half his own household off the public record.
That is a fair strike, and I will not pretend otherwise. But hypocrisy does not make the principle wrong, Alexander. It only makes the messenger imperfect. Every messenger in history has been imperfect. The principle survives me. It has to.
How convenient. The philosophy outlives the philosopher's own conduct. I built this country's financial architecture from nothing, funded the debt, chartered the bank, while men like you sat in Monticello writing essays about farmers who could not read your Latin.
I have read your Federalist 70 more times than you have, Alexander. Decision, activity, secrecy, and dispatch. You wrote secrecy into the very definition of good government, and now you wonder why I do not trust a single word that comes out of your Treasury.
I wrote that an executive needs the capacity for secrecy in matters of state, war, diplomacy, genuine emergencies. I did not write that a county development authority should hide a server farm from the people whose water it is about to drink.
Now that, Alexander, might be the first honest sentence you have said all part.
Do not get used to it.
In Coweta, Oklahoma, officials briefed board members one or two at a time specifically to dodge a quorum requirement. That is not statecraft, Alexander. That is a magic trick performed on democracy.
That, I will grant you, is a genuine abuse. Though Oklahoma is not Georgia, and Georgia is not Virginia, and you keep stitching 3 states into one conspiracy from a handful of documented cases.
Careful, Alexander. Concede one more point, and I will start to think you have a conscience buried under all that ambition.
I concede facts, Thomas, not principles. There is a considerable distance between a company protecting its bargaining position and a public official hiding his own vote from the people who elected him. I have never defended the second thing.
Georgia has more than one such story, Alexander. A developer called DC Blocks asked a private landowner near the Florida line to sign away his voice entirely before a single application had even been filed.
A landowner negotiating the sale of his own property is not a public official, Thomas. He owes the county nothing, and you are building your entire case on one lawyer in one county, not on how many sold quietly and nobody minded.
He owes his neighbors a great deal, Alexander. When the land borders their wells, and the deal decides how much water gets pulled from under their houses.
Then the neighbors are free to organize, to petition, to show up at every commission meeting, which they have done rather enthusiastically. That is the system working, Thomas, not failing.
The system working would mean they are organizing around facts, not a rumor a town hall audience finally forced out of him. And when a county gets the facts in time, watch what happens.
Here we go.
Spartanburg County. Residents objected loudly enough that the council refused to approve the tax agreement, and the company packed up and threatened to go elsewhere. I call that citizens doing precisely what citizens are supposed to do once they finally learn what their government has been discussing without them.
And the company left, Thomas, taking the jobs and the investment with it. Congratulations on a moral victory Spartanburg cannot spend. Though you cannot prove the deal survives in silence either, and neither of us knows the other path.
I would rather a county keep its self-respect than rent it out to the highest bidder, Alexander.
Self-respect does not build power substations, Thomas. It does not pay teachers or pave roads. You speak as though every dollar of private investment is an insult to democracy, rather than the thing that actually funds it.
I speak as though a citizen deserves to know what his water and his tax dollars are protecting before he is asked to applaud the ribbon cutting.
Then applaud a little later, Thomas. Nobody has ever died from finding out good news on a slight delay.
Nobody has ever died from an NDA either, Alexander, until the day a county discovers its water table was quietly spoken for years before anyone thought to ask.
That is a hypothetical dressed up as a fact.
It is a pattern, Alexander, and a pattern is simply a hypothetical that has already happened enough times to stop being one. Though even I cannot tell you how many quiet water tables were spoken for and never discovered. That is the trouble with a secret kept well.
Finally, a moment of honesty. In Colleton County, South Carolina, 2 councilmen signed confidentiality agreements individually through a regional development alliance, not through the county itself. That distinction matters, Thomas. It means the county was never formally bound.
It means 2 elected men decided the public was owed silence and arranged the paperwork so no one could prove the county ever agreed to it. That is not a meaningful distinction, Alexander. That is a loophole wearing a necktie.
A loophole is still a legal mechanism, Thomas, and legal mechanisms are how governments function, whether or not you find them poetic. Though Colleton County alone tells neither of us whether this is the exception or the norm.
You wrote an entire report arguing government should actively court industry, Alexander, and I do not dispute the goal. I dispute courting industry in a locked room with every blind drawn.
The report on manufacturers argued for a government active enough to build an economy, Thomas. Not a government so transparent it negotiates with one hand tied behind its back while every competing county watches its every move.
Then we agree the line exists. We simply disagree about where every county in America keeps drawing it, and neither of us can honestly claim to have counted every county that has drawn it wrong.
We agree on very little, Thomas, but I will allow the line exists, and that neither of us holds the full ledger. Watch closely in part 2 because I intend to show you why moving that line where you want it would cost this country every data center, every factory, and every dollar of investment you claim to want for your farmers.
And I intend to show every viewer watching precisely how many secrets it takes to make a county forget it is supposed to work for the people living in it.